And I was telling the guys that when we were listening to this you hear me say, I'm going to move this phone away from me and point it away from me, and then somehow I get louder and everybody still gets quieter. It's like, this is really in the center of the table facing away from me, and somehow, yeah, well, I know my voice is too much. So, what I was telling the guys was, after I didn't do this lesson service last week, because we had the short lesson, I was looking at all the things that I missed, because I really kind of said, yeah, this lesson's a boring lesson. This is the most boring chapter in all the Corinthians. Let's just get out of this. God said, you know what? You should go look at that again. And
good,
so
I felt like I got gypped.
good. I'm glad he said that. I said I had it.
Like you're about to fall asleep.
Yeah, it's the worst lesson ever. And then I had the realization yesterday when I was studying, and I said this to the guys a little while ago, that if the only thing left of the Bible was this chapter, how different would I treat this chapter? You know, if the Bible was gone and this was the only word from God and from Paul that we had,
You'd be digging into it a lot.
You'd be digging into it hard, which turned into, you could really over-dig into this lesson a lot. But there's some things in this, there's some things in this chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 16, that are like, they seem like throwaways. But when you look at where they come from and the references and the way that they cross over and words that are being used, they're being used for the first time that then are used in other places throughout Paul's writings. That if you look at it that way and you see, well, this is the first time he used this term. Why did he use this term? Well, this term was used because of this. And then he started using it all over here and it became doctrine. So you kind of get that this is the origin of some things that he started establishing and saying what was going on. So let's start at 16 and at verse 1. And Doug, could you read 16 verse 1 through 4 for us?
Sure. Now, regarding your question about the money being collected for God's people in Jerusalem, you should follow the same procedure I gave to the churches in Galatia. On the first day of each week, you should each put aside a portion of the money you have earned. Don't wait until I get there and then try to collect it all at once. When I come, I will write letters of recommendation for the messengers you choose to deliver your gift to Jerusalem. And if it seems appropriate for me to go along, they can travel with me.
Okay. So it seems very basic and very easy to understand what's going on here, but there's some extra stuff that we're missing. So we're going to go over to Timothy 6, and we're going to read Timothy 6 real quick.
First or second?
1 Timothy. Okay. All right. Colby, if you could read there at 1 Timothy 6.
All slaves should show full respect for their masters, so they will not bring shame on the name of God and his teaching. If the masters are believers, that is no excuse for being disrespectful. Those slaves should work all the harder because their efforts are helping other believers who are well loved. Teach these things, Timothy, and encourage everyone to obey them. Some people may contradict our teaching, but these are the wholesome teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ. These teachings promote a godly life. Anyone who teaches something different is arrogant and lacks understanding. Such a person has an unhealthy desire to quibble over meaning of words. This stirs up arguments ending in jealousy, division, slander, and evil suspicions. These people always cause trouble. Their minds are corrupt, and they have turned their backs on the truth. To them, a show of godliness is just a way to become wealthy. Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into this world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. So if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. But people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plague them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, and some people craving money have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows.
Okay, Matt, go ahead and read there at 11.
But you, man of God, flee from all this and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. Fight the good fight of the faith. Take hold of the eternal life to which you were called when you made your good confession in the presence of many witnesses, in the sight of God, who gives life to everything, and of Christ Jesus, who, while testifying before Pontius Pilate, made the good confession. I charge you to keep this command without spot or blame until the appearing of our Lord Jesus Christ, which God will bring about in his own time. God, the blessed and only ruler, the King of kings and Lord of lords, who alone is immortal, who lives in an unapproachable light, whom no one has seen or can see, to him be the honor and might forever. Amen. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and be generous and willing to share. In this way they will lay up treasures for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. Timothy, guard what has been entrusted to your care. Turn away from godless chatter and the opposing ideas of what is falsely called knowledge, which some have professed, and in so doing have departed from the faith. Grace be with you all.
Okay, so we read a whole bunch about money and money issues and why the money is the root of issues and problems. And if we look at 1 Corinthians 16 in that first group, there are actually some little pieces in there that show you that the church is having a lot of problems with money issues starting to burrow their way into the church.
Don't wait till I get there to collect it all at once.
Don't wait to get there and collect it all at once. You have to have letters of approval for who is sending the money. So they're questioning who's taking the money to where. And he points out that he'll travel with the money.
If it's needed, yeah.
Yeah, because they're not trusting that the money's going to what it should go to, where it should be at, who's getting the monies. There's a lot of contention that's going on there of, well, am I really sending this over to Africa for the children not to starve kind of questions that are happening. And it's causing more rifts in an already rift-prone congregation that's all not trusting each other and not, well, what if the money is being collected at different times? Is somebody keeping it in his pocket and skimming some money? You know, because he's used to coming to town and then he collects all the money because they trust Paul's going to do what he's supposed to do with the money. He's saying, no, every week, lay aside some money, put it in a place, and then give it to us when we get there. Well, why wouldn't they just do that already? Because people aren't trusting each other. That the money is disappearing, that they're doing away, you know. And these are all issues that we still deal with today, that in this little bitty passage, he's responding to. The very beginning, now concerning, at the beginning of the letter, when he says now concerning, anytime you see it in any of the things, now concerning is in response to something that's been questioned to him. Somebody's sent him a letter saying, we're having problems with this. And he's responding, now concerning this thing that you sent me a message about, I'm going to respond to that. So we're seeing how he's responding to this. And in 1 Timothy, you see all of the examples of things that are going wrong in the church. Let's go over to Proverbs 10, Dave. Read it, Proverbs 10. and we'll touch on this a little bit more with some of the other things that have happened. 1 through 22.
Alrighty. The Proverbs of Solomon. A wise child brings joy to a father. A foolish child brings grief to a mother. Tainted wealth has no lasting value, but right living can save your life. The Lord will not let the godly go hungry, but he refuses to satisfy the craving of the wicked.
Okay, so let's stop there for a second. So, do you guys remember what happened at Pentecost with Peter and with how the church developed there? You guys remember this stuff? Okay, so you got Peter. All these people come to know the Lord. What did they do with their belongings and their stuff at that moment?
Push.
There should be a push on there.
Push it.
At that moment, on the day of Pentecost, everybody started selling their stuff and they started living together communally. All these Christians said, God's coming at any time. Let's sell our stuff and let's all become missionaries and outreach and not have any of our own properties. And let's quit our jobs and we're going to go share God with the world. Right? What happened to that church? What happened to that church was they slowly ran out of money. And if you follow the track through Acts of that church, there are references specifically that talk about all those original missionary church plants going broke and how they don't have any money left. And so the business model that was created, which is a worldly business model of communally, God's going to provide everything for us. Let's just sell all our stuff and become evangelists. Slowly broke, not because God wasn't providing, but because God's people weren't providing. What happened was you had this group of people that all trusted God and made that leap of faith and became missionaries. And then all these people back home that became Christians from them and after the fact that went, I'm not giving them my money so they can go and continue to do this. Mm-hmm. So they're slowly starving to death, which is what this first group of verses in Corinthians is about, in 16 of Corinthians is about. The saints in Jerusalem are the members of that first group of congregation that sold all their stuff to do nothing but outreach, that are now starving to death because no one's sending them money to continue their mission anymore. That's amazing if you think about it, because it's really all about how we are now. Do we give money to missions? Do we regularly tithe? And what Paul is doing is setting up those things. And so the reference to saints here is a reference to those people who should be sainted, called saints, who trusted God completely and did what they're supposed to, who are now being left to starve to death by you people at Corinth who have money and are going, no, we're not going to, And so it's really establishing how a functional church giving program is being set up, is what this first group of chapters is about. And how these people that get trusted in God are slowly starving to death because of our own greed, and how Paul's using it to bring the message of God to say, hey, you should be giving because you have. And they trusted that God would provide. You're the person that God's providing through. Step up and do what you're supposed to do. So continue reading Proverbs there.
It says, lazy people are soon poor, hard workers get rich. A wise youth harvests in the summer, but one who sleeps during harvest is a disgrace. The godly are showered with blessings. The words of the wicked conceal violent intentions. We have happy memories of the godly, but the name of a wicked person rots away. The wise are glad to be instructed, but babbling fools fall flat on their faces. People with integrity walk safely, but those who follow crooked paths will be exposed. People who wink at a wrong cause trouble. Try that again. People who wink at wrong cause trouble, but a bold reproof promotes peace. The words of the godly are a life-giving fountain. The words of the wicked conceal violent intentions. Hatred stirs up quarrels, but love makes up for all offenses. Wise words come from the lips of people with understanding, but those lacking sense will be beaten with a rod. Wise people treasure knowledge, but the babbling of a fool invites disaster. The wealth of the rich is their fortress, the poverty of the poor is their destruction. The earnings of the godly enhance their lives, but evil people squander their money on sin. People who accept people who accept discipline are on the pathway to life, but those who ignore correction will go astray. Hiding hatred makes you a liar. Slandering others makes you a fool. Too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. The words of the godly are like sterling silver. The heart of a fool is worthless. The words of the godly encourage many, but fools are destroyed by their lack of common sense. The blessing of the Lord makes a person rich, and he adds no sorrow with it.
Okay, so I had us read all of those pieces because there's so many references in there to, if you're rich in God, you're going to give your money. You're going to have what you need. You're going to go forward with what you should do. If you're wise with your money, you should actually be doing what you're supposed to be doing with your money. This is old school proverb stuff, right? And he's talking to these people who have money, who have what they need, who are not doing what they're supposed to do. So you know those tithing messages that everyone hates? That's really what his little ditty at the beginning of this is first of all, we're sending money to Jerusalem to the saints. Who are the saints? Well, that's the first time he's really referencing them as saints. They know who the people in Jerusalem are. They already know, because it's concerning, they already know that there are people who are Christians, who are outreach people in Jerusalem, and he's calling them saints. Why are they called saints? Because they're broke and still doing everything in the world for God. That's why he's calling them saints. So that's the first reference to the guys that are sainted now, like in the Catholic Church. They call them saints because they're the people that, go out and change an entire people group and live off the land and do, that's where that reference comes from, is saints here, where the people in Jerusalem are starving to death.
And they're missionaries.
They're missionaries. And they're missionaries to Jerusalem in a place. Why are they starving, though? Didn't these people have jobs before? Couldn't they just go back and get their jobs?
Because they sold everything they had and followed Jesus.
Right? But you've sold everything, but now you're starving to death. Can you not just go out and get another job? Can you not carry some sacks of grain?
Christians are ostracized.
Completely ostracized. They've got nothing. The way that commerce worked in that day and age was it was based on people group status and religious status. Okay? So...
I'm glad church isn't like that.
Oh.
Wow. So in those days, if you wanted to be part of the carpentry union, it wasn't really a union. You worked for the Jewish carpentry union, or you worked for I'm just making this up, the Jupiter's carpentry union. You were part of the Church of Zeus, the Church of Jupiter, the Church of Mars, cross-referencing Greek and Roman and all these different things. You were part of whatever religious church you belonged to, and they gave you the right to work in that job. Before you built a building, you had to offer that building to the God that it was going to, and only people that worshiped that God could work on that building site. Now, if you go back and do a DVD, there's a couple DVD series that are incredible about this, because you go and find out, like a single column, took 60 years to make. And all through the base of it, you have all these little medallions or things that are attributing to that God that they worshipped. So a guy that worshipped a different God wasn't allowed to work on that column, because that column would collapse if that guy worked on that column. So you couldn't, as a Christian, get a job without going, oh, this is the such and such bakery. Yes, I follow Aphrodite. Now I make this food. And you couldn't work for the Jews anymore, because you're not a Jew anymore. So you really went broke. You had nothing. You had no right to whatever you had before. if you had a job before and you had the rights to work that job, you can maintain that right even though you've changed, because it's not like they can kick you out. So these people who still had jobs should have been supporting these people that gave up everything because they turned away from these false gods and these false laws. You know, they really put themselves out there. One day you're allowed to fish in this place because you're part of the fishing union for the Jews, and the next day you can't own a boat. Church and state were together. They were combined. And even worse, anarchistic, because they were crossed over. Well, there's a fishing unit, but there's a fishing unit for pretty much every religion that there is. And if you're not part of one of those religions, you don't go on the boat and find fish. You starve to death. Okay? So that's really deeply what these people are into of, I'm starving to death. God promised me that this would come. Yes, it will. I'm Paul, and I'm telling the people that are supposed to be providing and giving from God to give to you. And that's what this letter is. Paul showed up, took care of the situation, changed it. And started making it happen the way it was supposed to happen. Paul mentioned he had a heart for poor Christians, and he says, as I have given orders to the church of Galatia. He'd already told the Galatians to do this, and that was over in chapter 2. We're not going to do Galatians. Last week I started reading in Galatians, but we've already done a study in Galatians with some people that are already in the class, and it was a 17-week study of Galatians. So we're going to go to the next book and pass back over Galatians and not go all the way through Galatians again the way that we did previously. Because frankly, it would be really boring for some of the people who'd already been through Galatians, because it would just be me beating the dead horse of what I've already said. But in Galatians chapter 2, 9 through 10, he talks about the church in Jerusalem. The business of relieving the poor members of the church is a moral duty, a sacrifice with which God is well pleased. And then he talks about it again with Philippians 4:18. It's a faith that must work in love that we should be providing for these people that are poor. Okay? So both of those are just about this beginning group of verses about how they needed to be provided for. So let's go back to Corinthians. And we're going to be at 5. Let's see. Rick, you haven't had a chance to read for us yet. Go ahead and read there at 16, verse 5.
Where is Corinthians? It's before Galatians. Thank you. Anyway, which one am I reading?
16.
First or second?
1 Corinthians 16, verse 5.
16, verse 5. After I go through Macedonia, I will come to you, for I will be going through Macedonia. Perhaps I will stay with you a while, or even spend the winter, so that you can help me on my journey wherever I go. I do not want to see you now and make only a passing visit. I hope to spend some time with you if the Lord permits, but I will stay on at Ephesus until Pentecost, because a great door for effective work has opened to me, and there are many who oppose me.
Okay, let's stop for a second. And I forgot to mention something else that was established in verse 2. Did you guys, anybody notice in verse 2 what else was established? First day of the week. What day is the first day of the week?
Sunday.
Sunday. It's when we take offering.
Offering, yeah.
That's where that was established.
Mm-hmm.
1 Corinthians. That's the first time that was said. This is when we're going to collect money. That's what you do. That's when you give your tithe, which isn't really a tithe anymore, but we could go into that whole study as well. But the giving happens on the first day of the week, which is Sunday, the one that's given to God, and the Sabbath and the celebration of what the Lord has done. Okay, I forgot to mention that, so I was wanting to make sure that we cover that before I go on to the rest of this stuff that's in the next one.
Only back then, you were giving to somebody who used to kill people for a living.
That's and very true. It's a guy who used to kill people that you trust to take your money and do what he should do with it. Mm-hmm. And also, we need to remember that Paul was bivocational, so he had a job making tents. That's one of the things that he did. So he's also a guy that these people also know, well, he's got a job. You know, he's not just some slacker missionary guy in Jerusalem. You know, I can just hear the people who were part of this church doing that whole,
Lots of pessimism in churches, you know?
yeah,
It still goes on.
yeah, it's kind of still goes on, doesn't it? That whole
right
thing
in front of you.
well, they sold all their stuff. They were just stupid. No, they trusted in God. You're being stupid for not providing for them. They gave their whole heart to their ministry, and now you're judging them and not giving them money to continue their ministry.
I'll tell you, man, it is strange starting a ministry. It's got to be strange any age, man. Even me starting mine just last year, and it's definitely a faith thing. You're like,
gotta
okay,
step out
I
in
don't
faith.
make this much money, but I'm gonna put this much money into it.
That's right. And we still have this issue. It's not like people change. You know, we look at this still and go, yeah, sure, that money is really going to these kids in Uganda who are starving to death. Are you sure? How much percentage goes to that? I don't know if I want to give my 2.5 cents. You know, when you really step back and look at, what am I going to put? I have an extra $1 in my wallet. I'll throw it in there. How much of that dollar gets there? And it's like,
Or you're like, well, they're Ugandans. They'll be happy with 50 cents.
exactly.
That's a year's wages down in
Yeah.
Uganda.
Yeah, exactly. So it really is. He's laying it out in this little statement. Guys, we've got to establish a way that we give money regularly. We've got to give money regularly to the people who are out there in the streets, knocking on doors, trying to change people's lives. And I think there's definitely a hint of, because you ain't, in the way that he handles this whole letter. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're judging the people who sold everything, gave up their entire lives, and you're not even trying to provide for them. I mean, we've already saw that these people eat all the communal food before the other people who are starving to death get there and can't have one cracker. Remember we read that already. Mm-hmm. How we had a body of believers who, when it's the day for communion, the rich people in the church come and eat all the food and drink all the wine and get drunk on it. Mm-hmm. And then the people who are the poor in the church get there and it's like, I don't even get a snack. I don't even get to partake of the body because they're eating it for food rather than eat. Who are these people?
The worst Christians ever.
They're us. They're every church, every time, everywhere.
Take small offense to that. After all, I did name my ministry after the Corinthians.
Hey, it's a good letter. It's a good letter. It teaches a lot of things. So, all right. And then whoever approves your letters, that's the other thing. These people have to establish somebody who approves who goes.
So who's approving the letters? That's what I'm wondering. Is that church group approving the letters?
Yes.
And if so, that's kind of questionable because...
They're all pessimistic.
Good answer.
What?
Let's talk about that. That's actually one of the things I like about this is because it's a little bit of that reverse psychology stuff. Well, you guys are judging all this. Now we have to get you guys to come up with your own checks and balances group who's deciding who should do this. And I'm already openly saying to you guys, you should be following after God and do what's right. So it's not a guilt trip, but it's that, okay, you guys need to establish who makes this decision and approves this.
That probably didn't happen very fast at all.
No, right? Because you got this guy over here who doesn't trust this guy over here already, and they have to decide together who's going to be approving what monies go to where. He's establishing a church government. He's establishing a way for the church to check itself in just this simple statement. And after we get a group of people to approve,
Those were the first deacons.
this is kind of the deacons thing. This is kind of who are your elders? Who's making these calls? And if you guys don't get along together, I don't care. You still have to decide and approve it.
So why can't we make that happen in today's day? I mean, it seems like they finally, after a while, got it down then. But we can't seem to get it down now.
We still...
Because we're imperfect human beings.
Well, that's
full of sin and
that's
lust
kind of
and
like a
greed.
cop-out almost.
It's the
We're born
truth.
with that, though.
It's the truth. You want to know why? That's it.
I think it's largely because now we have the option to leave. Back then, there was only one church.
That's true. Yeah.
There's, here in America, there's a church over there,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's one over there, and there's that new one that keeps on changing from one church to another church to another church to another church in that white building up the street. You know, there's churches everywhere, and it's like, well, I don't like that guy in this church, so I'll just go over there, and maybe I'll like more people in that church, and
the best
keep
part about that,
church hop until they discover that there is no such thing as a perfect church, and they go back to the first one.
Yeah.
Or they don't.
is the body is still the body.
That's what I was just about to say. It doesn't, we think of church in, our society a lot, not the way it should be. We think of it as a building that we go to commune, not as our group of fellow believers, no matter what building they go to or what denomination that building is, they are still our fellow believers. They are part of our body of the church.
Right.
And we just can't seem to grasp that.
Yeah. Well, and if we go to, that's one of the only things, I'm a weirdo because most of you guys like Revelation, but one of the only things that I like in Revelation is the beginning description of the churches. Because if you look at those beginning descriptions of the churches, they're all churches that we judge, but we're part of those churches. We are those churches. And you look at a church and you say, one of the church remembers the name of Christ, but doesn't remember any of the love. I'm paraphrasing and probably crossing ones, but that's really, we judge this church over here for what they do. Why are we judging that church? Because we're one of the other ones, and we really should be looking at, let's not judge.
That's like a hand judging the other hand.
That's exactly right. That's right. And we should be really looking at what God looks at in it. What are you guys doing right? Let's keep you guys doing what's right in this place. And here's the way that you can fix these other things. These are the things you're doing wrong. And that's what he points out in Revelation. You're remembering this, and you're doing a great job of remembering this. These are the things you're doing wrong. And that's what we should fix.
See, it's funny because I sent my son to a private school, Lutheran, Christian school. People, he's going to Lutheran school. You don't want him to learn the Lutheran. I walk into that school, and it's got Jesus Christ written up there on the wall. That's all that matters to me. I don't care if it's Lutheran, Catholic, whatever. They're preaching about Jesus Christ, and they're praying in Jesus' name when they pray.
You know the funny thing about Lutherans?
Well, there's the joke.
Rick's gonna jump in.
No, I'm actually not joking. The funny thing about the Lutheran name on a school or church is that Martin Luther himself had a huge problem with people being called Lutherans.
Oh yeah,
that's ironic.
I'm serious.
I know Luther like that, weren't you?
What? No, because he didn't want credit for interpreting things the way he interpreted it. He basically, I wish I could say the exact quote, but he was basically like, I'm like, don't call yourself a Lutheran. You're a Christian. I had nothing to do with it. And, so that's all.
They originally were Catholics, weren't they? And they broke off.
They have a lot of traditions of the Catholic Church.
That
Lutheran.
And then he wrote the 95 Thesis, and
I've been in their worship services. Of course, my son will go in their worship services and sing or something like that. It doesn't seem too much different than being here. It's got some of that old-fashioned feel of, couple
like
things,
an altar.
but it's a man standing up there preaching just like Bruce does.
They don't have like an altar with like a drain nearby, do they?
No.
Okay.
So here's the thing with that too is if we get into what we're talking about here, the different types of churches, there was no different types of church. Mm-hmm. You had Paul's church that he established in all these different places, his basic model,
Christian,
and it would break over here because they were dealing with former. The example was people who'd have sex in the church. That's what they used to do. That was their old church. And so for this church, he had to establish how not to be that. And then you go over to this church, and it's a church about money church. And he'd have to figure out how to establish the bit, because today, like Kurt was saying, we have the church of the people who care about how the building looks church, right? If you go to, one of my favorite things to see if I go to one of these big cities is the old cathedrals that the Catholics built.
Those are awesome looking.
It's a tribute to God.
Very more fun to sing in.
If you step back and you think about the number of people who were basically slave labored into building it, you're kind of like, oh, but that's horrible. But also, the guy who built this church wrongfully, decided to kill all these people off, wanted to give it to God. So it's still built to God. It's still him wrongfully creating something that is just an awe-inspiring thing to God. The church, the Catholic Church to Mary, is it Mary Magdalene Church? Okay, it's over at next to Messiah Baptist Church or New Spring Church. If you go in there and you walk down the middle row, which I've taken my kids there specifically just to see how beautiful this is, and it's got a stone floor, a slate stone floor, and as you walk down the aisle, they have windows that are set up in the ceiling that you can't see that they're there. And because they have things that block that viewpoint. And as you walk down the aisle, you slowly see that the light opens up to where the altar is. And it's designed so that when you're there in the morning time, the light goes over the top of it and naturally creates this thing that shines at the cross and at the altar.
And that shows you where the Ark of the Covenant.
Exactly, it shows you where the altar. The laser light. But they created that to love the Lord with the building.
That's pretty awesome.
It's an awesome thing. We've got a pretty nice building. We got a beautiful, functional building. But there's some churches that are like, well, we bought a Morton building, and we specifically built it this way. And it's a utility building. It's a gymnasium at night, and it's a church service place during the day. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different thought process about what a church should be. They hate each other. Both of them are church believers. How dare you not honor God with the beautiful building? I mean, it's a functional building to show people who got it. There's nothing wrong with you honoring God with this beautiful building and raising the money to build the building. Right? There's nothing wrong with it's that whole, and if you're a guy that's a broke, poor guy, you're going to be walking into a church like that going, boy, I don't want to be here. Everybody's wearing a 3-piece suit and whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you have, we had Joe Niblett talking about how he doesn't like people who dress up specifically for church. Well, why? Because that's not necessary. You're right, it's not necessary. Nothing says that it's necessary, but that person decides to do that. Why? It's not necessary to wear a cross on your neck. Do you judge that? No. So we had that whole conversation where it's like, oh, I see what you're saying, that it's about how you choose to worship God, as long as it's not against God's law. Yeah.
I don't have a problem with how people dress going to church. It's the people that come dressed up and then,
think that you
give the old
too.
once over to people that aren't as, fancy as they are.
Right. It's all about the heart of where they're coming from.
No shoes.
I don't know if
is this one of them no shoes churches?
Place for you.
Yeah, no shoes. You're not wearing shoes, you're out.
I love you, brother.
It's
I love you too, hoodie.
Hoodie. Yeah, we'll call him Hoodie from now
No,
on.
Bill Belichick is a hoodie. I'm not.
Bill Belichick. Well, and again, it's different people have different things that they love about certain things. I've already pointed out to Kurt and told him openly, when I think about worship, if Kurt's worshiping, he's got his shoes on, worship's broke. There's something broke with that, because that's the way he worships. I like that. People hate that.
Yes.
Why would people hate that?
Because he's not holding a banjo.
Yeah. Not today, anyway.
Sometime in the future.
So
Raising funds for
we've gone way off track, but I enjoy the concept that what we're seeing here is how to establish a bureaucracy in church to protect itself on purpose, because people are people and they don't exist without bureaucracy. Well, they don't exist. If you look at the Old Testament, that's what the Old Testament's about. I mean, all those churches that were just the leaders in the church, God's like, you don't need a king and a guy to show you everything. And they're like, no, we do. We really do. We need somebody to tell us what to do and to set all the rules. Okay, here's Saul. Ooh. Maybe this is supposed to be showing us that we shouldn't trust one king guy to be the best leader for us. No, we still want a king. Okay, here's David. And that's what happened. You watch that whole thing. The people for Moses. They were not good by themselves. Moses had to come down and beat them. He had to throw stuff down. He broke the 10 Commandments because these people would not. What is wrong with you people?
You gotta be kind of frustrated. If you just went up a mountain for how many weeks or whatever that was, to have God write himself on a stone tablet some instruction for you to bring down, and you get down there and you immediately smash them out of rage of what you've just seen. That's a facepalm. Crap.
Look what I just did.
God's like, I just made that.
If you watch God carve words onto a rock, are you going to be like, oh, that's awesome?
That gives us an idea of how frustrating it is to get back to the people.
Take me a whole nother second to make another one.
Well, at least I'll get to see him do it again. There's that.
There's a couple movies that they've done it where they have the people go up to the top of the mountain and they go, Vacation, National Lampoon's Vacation, right? They get the Grand Canyon, okay, enough time, and then they leave, right? Or when you have the thing where the guys go to the top of the mountain, they go, oh, that's beautiful. Let's go. And then they're going down the mountain.
Yeah.
It's funny because that's biblical. That's what he did when he got to the top of the mountain. He was thinking about going down the mountain. You spend all the time getting to the top of the mountain, you get to the top of the mountain, and then you want to leave the top of the mountain. Because all you're thinking about is how to get off the mountain now that you've worked behind off to get to the top of the mountain.
Basically Rocky and Rocky 4.
Yeah, basically. Okay, how do I get down from here now? Because I just climbed all the way up to this hill. So, that's when God says, be still and know that I'm God. Chill out now that you got here and spend some time with me. Because we as people don't do that. And these people in Corinth, they weren't getting what they were supposed to be doing at all. They didn't have any form of something to give them a check and balance to stop and do what they're supposed to do. We by ourselves do, and just go. Right? If somebody else goes, well, shouldn't we be doing this over here?
Nah, they'll be fine.
Oh, holding me accountable and making me think about what I should really be doing instead of judging everybody else. Oh man, it's terrible. Another opinion? I don't need another opinion. My opinion's right. I think this money should go to this. Well, really? Let's have a little meeting about this. Why do you think that? That's what holds us accountable to each other. And he created bureaucracy, which I hate because I hate bureaucracy. Huh? He created red tape on purpose to help churches be able to make good decisions. All right. So, who was reading? It was Rick, right?
Yes.
Keep going. We're way off track, but
We love you.
we love you, Rick.
If Timothy comes, see to it that he has nothing to fear while he is with you, for he is carrying on the work of the Lord, just as I am. No one, then, should refuse to accept him. Send him on his way in peace, so that he may return to me. I am expecting him along with the brothers. Now about our brother Apollos, I strongly urged him to go with you with the brothers. He was quite unwilling to go now, but he will go when he has the opportunity. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be men of courage, be strong, do everything in love. You know that the household of Stephanas were the first converts in Achaia, and they have devoted themselves to the service of the saints. I urge you, brothers, to submit to such as these, and to everyone who joins in the work and labors at it. I was glad when Stephanas, Fortunatus, and Achaicus arrived, because they have supplied what was lacking from you. For they refreshed my spirit and yours also. Such men deserve recognition. The churches in the province of Asia send you greetings. Aquila and Priscilla greet you warmly in the Lord, and so does the church that meets at their house. All the brothers here send you greetings. Greet one another with a holy kiss. I, Paul, write this greeting in my own hand. If anyone does not love the Lord, a curse be on him. Come, O Lord. The grace of the Lord Jesus be with you. My love to all of you in Christ Jesus. Amen.
All right.
I have a question here.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering how those arguments go, because he was talking about, strongly urging Apollos to go, and he was quite unwilling to go, and it's just like, when I'm listening to Paul's, writings here, I don't see him, not being mellow. So it's like, how does he, please go, Apollos. No, I don't want to go. Please, Apollos, go? No. Apollos. I mean, how does that, just because it seems like he's such a difference from what he used to be to, you're going, Apollos, okay.
let's talk about the character of Paul and step back and look at.
Because, I mean, we know how he deals with the churches, but how does he deal with his own little group? Doesn't
His little
talk
group of
about
people.
it as much, and it's kind of curious.
If we look at who Paul had become, Paul is like the guy who knows all the answers that you're already talking to about knowing all the answers, right? He's the guy. I'm trying to think of a person in personality that would be Paul, because I personally don't like Paul. Like, I think if I met Paul would be that guy that'd be like, you're that guy, you know? You studied all this stuff, you know it so well that you just go, well, 2 Corinthians such and such. And you're like, I don't care about 2 Corinthians such and such. I want to go and have a burger. Well, Proverbs 27, you know, he's that guy, you know, and you're like, yeah, he's not life application in what he tells people to do until there's a problem, and then he has to try to figure out an answer to fixing the problem of people. So I don't think he's a people person at all. I think he is I got to step back and see what the best way to figure out how to make this work. Because why can't you guys just get along? You know, that's his personality. That seems to be his personality, right? When you read these, he's the guy that's like, stop being stupid. Do what you're supposed to do. And I use that phrase a lot because he does say things like, you know,
almost like he's been in a room, like a dungeon, his whole life fixing machines, and he looks at people in the church like a machine, and wonders why they don't do exactly what he wants them to.
Yeah, do what you're supposed to do. This is a guy who grew up killing you if you didn't do what you're supposed to do. He now
Has to not kill you.
not to kill you, love you into doing what you're supposed to do. He's still the same guy of, you're supposed to not cheat each other out of money. I'm going to write you a very serious letter now. You know, that's what he does. And he has somebody else writing it because he had bad handwriting. They actually, you know, at the end of these things, I'm writing this in my own hand, and they talk about how he actually mentions.
I would like to see an original Bible like that, just so I could see the comparison of, because now it's, you know, all the same print. I'm writing this in my own hand. That looks exactly like that. I think it would be interesting to see.
To see how ugly his writing is.
Hey, I have horrible handwriting myself.
But this is a guy who is using a scribe to try to pass on all of the things that he has to say. The scribe also kind of is there, right?
Yeah.
Silas or Barnabas or whoever is scribing it. Barnabas, I already pointed out, is a peacemaker guy. We're getting what was written after someone else heard what Paul had to say. Think about that, right? Well, tell them they should just send the money to those morons, right? Whoa, do you really want me to write that? Let's think about that for a few minutes. I'm serious. Think about it. If you and another guy are sitting in a room, and the other guy is the love peacemaker guy,
And you're just impatiently angry at people.
right, throwing the tablets down.
Because I seem to be that other guy more than the peacemaker guy when I'm dealing with business.
These morons! And you're like, right, peace be with you.
And then that's why he adds at the beginnings or the ends or in the middles, this I say in my own hand, you should not do that. Stop being stupid. I mean, he does that every once in a while. Where the other times it's like, was that Barnabas talking to us and being nice to us? Was that Silas saying something really nice? Yes. You know, we got to step back and look at this again. I'm way too life application and all this stuff already. But if you look at what kind of character he was, he's trying to look back at the laws and put them in place and just say, do the laws. And then he's dealing with the people after that. You're supposed to just do the law. Okay, so you're not going to do the law. There's no Jewish church to beat you to death because you're not doing what you're supposed to do. How do I make that fix itself? You guys have to decide how to fix this on your own. You now have to vote on it and make that decision. And he put that in place. And he started that ball rolling. Now, when I say he started, did he he get that inspiration from God? I mean, all these works are God-inspired works.
Yeah.
God's like, why don't you go read the Old Testament? See what happened in the Old Testament. When things weren't working out, what had to happen? People had to have some bureaucracy. They had to have decisions made for them, or they had to make decisions in groups and make good decisions.
I kind of hit the other end of the extreme there when, because I'm still stuck in the Old Testament, but it seems like anytime somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do, they died. I'm just going to say it was a little bit more harsh back then, but it got the problem fixed and working, and, it took people about 40 years to learn the lesson, but they stopped doing bad stuff for a little bit. They're like, you know what? I don't want to die. I'm okay.
We're going to delve into some of the other stuff that we just read next week. So we're going to wrap it up here, just so that everybody can get into church on time and finish that stuff out. But we'll go into some.
Are in church.
Yes. Into the sanctuary.